So to conclude the morning, we're now moving to the presentation of the papers from Area 3, Case Studies and Systematization of Service Learning Programs and Practices, moderated by Andrés Peregalli from the Catholic University of Argentina and CLAYSS. He's going to introduce the panelists.
Bueno, siguiendo con la...
Well, we continue with the agenda. We are moving to the third panel. As you can see in your agenda, it says presentation of highlighted works from Area 3, Case Studies and Systematization of Programs and Practices of Service Learning. That is one of the lines that historically have been worked at this researchers' meeting, as Alejandra mentioned. Each panelist will have 12 minutes for their presentation. So we ask you to please stick to that. And as Daniel mentioned, because of, reasons that everybody is aware of, we're going to have the video from Bethlehem University. They couldn't make it here, but they have sent a video. So without further ado, we are going to present the first presentation by líderes lliana Hernández Silvera, Synergy, in workshops in person and remotely for the elderly from the Catholic University of Argentina. Good morning. It's still good morning because we haven't had lunch yet. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Uniservitate and CLAYSS, for this opportunity of sharing our work. What I'm here to talk to you about is the synergy among 3 courses, the morning, the afternoon, and the evening shift. It's a proposal of service learning where we articulate the skills of the pedagogist in the community practice with an engagement. So the main objective was to evaluate the service learning implemented by students in those 3 courses, that is third grade in the evening shift, 4th year of the morning shift, and 4th year of the evening shift, through their collaborative synergy in the cognitive development of the elderly. The first project is opening roads of sense. There they do 2 workshops in person in a retirement home that is attended by elderly people from 2 sectors. One is chronic persons with chronic diseases, and the other semi-dependent with cognitive deterioration. And they worked on musical therapy and dance therapy and games in another sector. These are not recreational activities, but activities that have a subject matter, and then they apply techniques and they provide cognitive stimulation apart from establishing a connection. The other workshop that they organized, one workshop was in person and the other one was done remotely. The other one appeared with the pandemic, with the need to implement something to overcome the isolation, because most of these elderly lived on their own, or perhaps their children just got to the gates of their houses, so they could only establish a connection by cell phone, or so this was something they could do during the day for cognitive stimulation.
Haciendo ahora son 2 talleres.
Then we did 2 workshops, one on digital landscapes, that is different places in the world. They access these activities through their Zoom sessions. So there an assessment of the cognitive skills is done to prepare for the next session, and they also apply cognitive stimulation activities. Those dynamics can be from, going into Spain and tour some places of Spain, or also places they know, like the circus they used to visit 50 years ago. The other dynamic is the escape rooms. For those of you that have ever visited an escape room, this is very similar. These are the Zoom sessions, Zoom rooms, where they have to work out some issues that have to do with cognitive skills. And they move from one room to the other until they reach the final one. They are given a code to access the different rooms, and then they finally solve it in the final room. And then the third group, that is the third grade, the third year group, did a workbook for conducting activities for those that were attending their workshops in person. These third year students prepared two of these workbooks, one for the escape rooms and one for the digital landscapes, so that the end of the workshops is not so abrupt, so they can do a more gradual transition, not that the end of the workshop it's the end of the activity and they won't see one another any longer. This way they can continue with the activities. And this is the third year group on professional skills based on community service. That is a project. Initially, they do workshops on study techniques at a school with vulnerabilities in terms of academic skills and also social and economic conditions. Once they do the workshops on technical or study skills, then they move to these meetings with fourth year to find out what they are doing. They go to Zoom sessions and they listen to the participants. They observe those activities and they create the material. And that creates a synergy that is permanently, feedback is given permanently, because it's not just these activities, but then they do video presentations, presentations in different meetings, in open classes. So that skill is ingrained. They gradually understand what is it that they have been doing, because they disseminate what they did, they ask, they reflect about it. So then we had to think of how to evaluate and what design would be appropriate for this work. We thought of a descriptive exploratory design that allowed us to establish the phases of this diagnosis. That was diagnosis, stimulation, retest, and then being able to evaluate the impact of this work. But also having a mixed approach so as to value or to assess the participants on a Google form, as well as the community partners. We had two community partners: the retirement home, it is a permanent home for the elderly, and another community partner was the Institute for Marriage and Family that is within the university. So an open class was done to include the community partners, and that was very significant because they observed the whole work. As the outcomes of this assessment that is required of the work of the students, because we also needed to know the result based on the tests that were administered. Pre and post test, we evaluated motor series, direct digits, and reverse digits. That is skills they use to feed, to take the forks, the cutlery, to dress themselves, to pay attention what they are spoken to. And what we observed in the in-person workshops, the pre-scores are all very low, also low in the virtual, but they're even lower in those in-person. But among the positive aspects, in the post, we see improvements. It was not that they reversed their deterioration and went back to the initial stage, but this allowed them to communicate better with the environment. I don't know if I went very fast.
Con la materia de gerontología y familia estamos haciendo nuestras experiencias formativas inclusivas en el hogar, específicamente los sectores 7 y 8. En este espacio, nuestro objetivo principal fue evaluar y estimular las funciones cognitivas de los residentes que presentan un deterioro cognitivo leve. Esto se asocia con una necesidad de estimulación y entrenamiento que necesitan estas personas. Durante nuestra experiencia fuimos llevando a cabo un diagnóstico inicial que nos permitió construir un perfil cognitivo de cada uno de los participantes. A partir de estos diagnósticos, nosotros diseñamos y aplicamos estrategias de estimulación cognitiva enfocadas en funciones específicas que creemos que pueden mejorar en esta población. Cada actividad que realizamos tiene un objetivo puntual y está cuidadosamente planificada para poder promover un cambio positivo en las funciones que seleccionamos. Para nosotras es muy satisfactorio ver cómo las personas disfrutan de las actividades y cómo nuestro trabajo contribuye a mejorar la calidad de vida de estas personas.
She had 1 minute, so she tried to say a lot in 1 minute, and she managed.
Yo creo que todo este trabajo cierra con...
I think that we can conclude this with this phrase, that is the best way of finding yourself is by losing yourself in the service to others. Very often in the virtual or the in-person work, we meet with the students before the practice, and they are all tired and with lots of materials, carrying lots of bags and things in order to do the work, or with many questions. But once they finish the practice, they are all wearing a big smile on their faces, and they don't feel tired anymore. And this is why, because they lost themselves in the service. Thank you.
Bueno, muchas gracias.
All right, thank you. Dides, you did well on time. So she has a degree in psychology and she has a degree in behavioral sciences. Now we are going to give the floor to Catalina. She had to fetch something, but she's going to have her presentation. She teaches English in a primary and secondary school. She has a diploma on education. She has worked at the Education Observatory for Innovation at the Antofagasta University in Chile. Her presentation is titled Pedagogy, Experience and Reflections on Service Learning with Children in Vulnerable Settings. Good morning, everyone. I brought this book from Chile. So let me say that I really appreciate having been invited to speak to you. I'm really very happy to see all the previous panelists, and now I feel quite lonely in Chile. In Chile, we haven't gone so far in the development of service learning. There are many areas where we can make progress. We can learn from the practices of Latin American colleagues and colleagues in other parts of the world. In the Antofagasta University, where I work, we still don't have service learning institutionalized, but we are heading towards that point. In the School of Education, there are 4 or 5 colleagues that have already started to use this methodology. And personally, I have been working with service learning as a methodology for different courses for 3 years now. So this has allowed me to gather some experiences. Well, these are the different steps in the process. You are all familiar with this. Regarding the theoretical model, well, we looked at different theoretical models and rubrics and documents that indicate what we should do. However, my position inside this theoretical model is on critical pedagogies. Looking at critical pedagogies as the basis for service learning, highlighting that they are grounded on transformative learning. That is, you can only learn and achieve a transformation if you value other people's knowledge and you become aware of that knowledge. Sometimes we tend to think that other people's knowledge in our communities is inferior, but that shouldn't be the case. We need to recognize and value those other sources of knowledge. So service learning is not transformative if it doesn't challenge basic problems such as racism, power, or privileges, as somebody else mentioned earlier when talking about social capital. Ultimately, this methodology allows our students to challenge these positions. Nowadays, as Bauman says, we are fully aware of a liquid society. Our students want everything right now, and actually they are just a click away from what they want. So today, one of the biggest challenges in pedagogy and in all other education areas have to do with teaching our students critical thinking, how to reflect on their own practices, how they can connect with the territory, and how they can find themselves in other people. And as teachers, we have that duty of paving the way. If we don't pave the way for students to find themselves in the territory, then we are just going to leave these students within four walls. In my case, I do that with students, but also with other colleagues. I work on English in primary and secondary schools, but also provide training to other colleagues, to faculty. So I'm trying to make sure that I open the doors to all of them. So this is just to put things in context. The University of Antofagasta last year during the second semester visited the National Protection Service for Children and Teenagers. It was called SENAME for some time. In Argentina there is a similar service protecting children. So we established the connection of English pedagogy with the National Protection Service, SENAME. The former SENAME service provides different types of support. It has different programs involving children whose rights had been violated at a certain point. For this service learning activity, we worked with the different residences or housing units that are a new model of houses that try to offer a safe space to children. So these are houses throughout the country. In Antofagasta, you have 4 or 5 of these residences. We work in particular with one of them with children between the ages of 10 and 12. So this methodology was framed within the subject of didactics for basic education. So I had 14 students in the 3rd year of the pedagogy program, and we held English workshops for this group of 6 boys and girls living in that residence. So this is the roadmap, the different steps. First, we coordinated our activities with the community partners. We visited the house. We had some previous communication to diagnose their needs. We democratized the service with students. What do we mean by this? Usually, we always try to promote the constructivist paradigms in our students. That is, they have to have a focus, they have to build their own knowledge, but sometimes we don't give them enough room for them to do that. Usually teachers plan and give instructions. So when we democratize the space, we give our students the possibility of having a say in planning and in evaluation processes. Then we planned the workshops, and we also went through some reflection processes. We came to the closure and then evaluation. 5 meetings were held. 4 were really practical meetings where our students identified or worked on the level of English for these children in this house, and they also work on reading. In English, we work on reading, writing, listening, and speaking. But for this methodology, we only focused on reading and writing. So we had 2 days devoted to reading and 2 days or 2 meetings devoted to writing. And we ended with the publication of this book. That is why I wanted to show it to you. Our students had to draw the children. All of them drew the same house. Of course, this was clear to my students because these children were living in that residence. So we just have the house as a gathering point. So we launched the book with some stories, short stories in English. My students of English pedagogy guided these children to write their own wishes, dreams, or whatever they wanted to write about in English. It was difficult, of course. It was a complex process, but in the end, it ended up being a very nice process and with quite satisfactory for both groups. Here we have some more details. First, the experience was planned, and we had a group review. So the whole course, all my students would go over that plan, they would give feedback, and they would make adjustments to the class plan. Then there was feedback and reflection. So in service learning, we gave a lot of importance to reflection. So we always have a reflection exercise. Here are some pictures of those workshops. This was October, November, so they also worked on Christmas time, and they wrote letters to elderly people, and my students were here with, they also wrote letters to Santa with my students. And we always highlight the nice things about experiences, but we tend not to speak about things that were more difficult or that have to do with the real world context. So there was one of the children with severe level of autism, so it was quite difficult for this child to write in English. So the process was quite frustrating for writing, not reading, actually. So in that sheet of paper, you could only see frustration. All of us tried to help that child. Several students worked with that child, but it was not possible to get any result. But you may wonder what happened with the child. We adapted to that, and he was also included in the book. So adaptability is also a key element here. This is the tablet that we use. This is part of the design, and it was also quite difficult for children to reach some level of agreement. If you look at the pictures, you see lots of objects here. They couldn't reach an agreement. So you have a rainbow, you have a heart, and so it looks a bit strange. But anyway, this book includes all those children. When we launched the book, we had the short fragments or texts written by children in English, and here we have the just brainstorming exercise that this child that didn't want to write produced for the book. So these are part of the challenges. And then how can we systematize this? You can do it only with the help of students. So we use a qualitative methodology for systematization. We also did a lot of reflection. Towards the end, the students work on reflection essays and a journal, and there was a triangulation, and from this triangulation of all these coding systems, they highlighted the pedagogical skills, the cross-sectional skills that have to do with the use of English, how to teach English. Here we see collaborative work, empathy, emotional aspects, adaptability. And this is a map that has two predominant traits that has to do with cross-sectional skills and pedagogical skills, because my students ultimately had to design, make adjustments, plan and evaluate and guide this exercise on site. Students didn't have a good level of English, or the children didn't have a good level of English to write on their own. So students have to work a lot to get to the final results. Then, for pedagogical skills, we have to design and plan many activities. Here you have some testimonials. In terms of the specific skills relating to English, I had to guide the children to convey the necessary content to them. In terms of empathy, I understood how to communicate better based on how they were feeling that day. Adaptability, I adapted to all kinds of learning, to all the levels of attention. And in closing, let me share some reflections. When you work in vulnerable settings, it is important not just to convey technical knowledge. We are not teaching students just how they should teach English, how they can also critically reflect on their own practices, how they can improve their practices. And then there is also a tension that appears with the traditional logic of pedagogical practices. These should be mandatory practices for our students to get acquainted with a non-traditional setting, and then they may make a decision of what they want to do. Here we also see an identity transformation among students. This is the fourth service learning experience that I conduct, and whenever I am with my students to democratize the method that I'm going to use, I always talk to my students, and 100% of the cases the students want to use this methodology. So that is a result in itself. Students like service learning. This semester we have just completed a service learning experience in the night shift. It was not our usual working time, but I had full attendance every single day. Perhaps if we have lessons in the morning, they would be absent. So I see a high level of commitment, engagement from students. I don't even have a roll call because all of them come to my lessons. So this is a methodology that certainly strengthens some aspects of us as trainers and also as trainers of trainers. So that would be all. Thank you.
Bueno, muchas gracias, Catalina.
Thank you, Catalina. And now we are moving to Ranjita. She's a professor and assistant at the Education Department of the Assam Don Bosco University, that is part of the Universitate network from Asia and Oceania. And she's going to present an experience in monitoring and evaluation of service learning initiatives at the Assam Don Bosco University. from India.
I feel privileged to be in this august gathering amidst all the learned personals. Okay, I think. Is it okay if I stand? Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm short-heighted, so I'm trying to adjust. Yeah. So, very good afternoon to all of you. Okay. The topic that I'm going to present today is Monitoring and Evaluation of Service Learning Initiatives, a study of Assam Don Bosco University. So this is a very specific study that we have tried to go through. It is a joint paper with Professor Riju Sharma, who is the director of Center for Developmental Studies and Initiatives at Assam Don Bosco University. Set the background, as we all are aware of, and all my previous speakers have already, shared their experiences. Service learning is the integration of the academic learning with the community engagement and structured reflection. And it absolutely aligns with the National Education Policy 2020 of India, which emphasizes on the holistic development, experiential learning, and multidisciplinary education. At Assam Don Bosco University, SL is a 2-credit course, institutionalized program, which has been achieved through capacity building initiatives, including the orientation and training of students and faculty, self-paced learning specific to the students, and also through service learning fellowship for students and faculty. The framework is guided by Andrew Foucault's 5 dimensions of self-assessment rubric, Dewey, Piaget, Vygotsky's theory, and of course the 3 H of head, heart, and hand. Well, the theoretical underpinnings include experiential learning based on Dewey's and Kolb's experiential learning theories, which emphasizes on concrete experience through community service, reflective observation of service outcomes and processes, and abstract conceptualization, where we link theory to practice. And it also focuses on the constructivist approach, incorporating Piaget's and Vygotsky's constructivist theories, focusing on social interaction that takes place within the community, collaborative learning through group projects, and knowledge construction through practical application. So the aim of the paper was to analyze the structure and assess the effectiveness of ADBU's M&E framework in service learning, focusing on student engagement, community impact, and learning outcomes. And we tried to examine the components of ADBU's SL M&E framework, evaluate its effectiveness in linking the academic outcomes with community needs, identifying certain strengths and gaps in the current M&E process that we are following, and recommending a strategy for enhancement through the MEAL framework, which I shall be discussing in my next slides. As far as ADBU's structured M&E framework in service learning is concerned, it focuses on quality and impact, which can be ensured through a structured monitoring and evaluation framework. And the framework bases include faculty mentoring. And I've listened to my previous speakers that this is a place where we are lagging behind. Many faculty still are yet to adapt to the framework of service learning. We use a very specific application called Moodle as the learning management system in our university. Then we have the student reflection activities and community feedback mechanisms. The evaluation levels include formative evaluation with session quizzes, which are actually which the students they attempt after going through the self-paced learning content, which is already available on the Moodle. And there are theory classes also for the initial semesters, especially the first semesters for undergrads and postgrads. And the reflection logs and ongoing mentoring. Summative evaluation includes the final report, submission of the final reports, presentations in front of all the members, like we have the nodal faculty, we have SL coordinator, the mentor. So in front of them, they present their presentations, and which is followed by the Viva Voice. We have institutional review, which is a biennial review meeting, takes place every semester. This is just to give you an idea of how. Okay. Sorry. So it is just to give you an idea, I have taken the screenshot of our academic calendar where you can see how, for easy accessibility to the students, how they get to know what are the different activities that we take up. So the semester opened on 11th of August, so we had a review meeting, which is shown in the academic calendar, which is handed over to the students beforehand. Then these are some of the snippets from the review meetings that we have and the faculty induction, which was taken care of by Professor Maria Rosa Tapia. This is a service learning coordinator. So we have different departments located at different buildings. So she goes to each and every department and carries out the service learning, this student induction. So the key strengths of the M&E system at our university includes the core committee, where we have the management and the CDSI, Center for Development Studies and Initiative Director. Then which is followed by the SL coordinator, who is an integral part of the CDSI office. Then we have the departmental faculty in charges at every department, followed by the class-wise or semester-wise mentor. So that's how we have this multi-tiered evaluation process. Everyone has got their specific assignments to perform. We have introduced this digital learning management system, which is available at moodle.dbuniversity.ac.in, which is easily accessible to all the students through the ERP system that we have. And sometimes the students are also oriented to download the app and have easy accessibility. Active faculty involvement, of course, through mentoring and assessment. And as all of us, we do, we follow participatory approach, including student, community, and feedback from all the stakeholders. We have student reflection, student assessment, and the review and continuous improvement. On the left side of the slide, you can see the basic monitoring process that we follow for SL, integrating the meaningful service to the learning community, followed by learning by means of services, which are facilitated by the teachers, the mentors, and each student is assigned a mentor who looks after all the processes for that particular class, for that particular student. And then we have the respective department SL in charges monitoring the progress of the entire departmental activities. On the right side of this slide, you can see the monitoring and evaluation components, so 100 marks of summative evaluation, which has been graded into different components. The timesheet, we are assigning 10 marks, reflective journaling 20 marks, summative report, again 20 marks, supervisor's evaluation 30 marks, and presentation of 20 marks. This is again the screenshot of the Moodle application that we are using. So the service learning coordinator assigns all the students under each cohort. So since I take care of the Department of Education, like one of the semesters, so I can select my cohort where the students are already assigned. This is one of the sample of my student who has uploaded her timesheet. So the student can see whether it is graded or not. You can see the green panel. So the student can see whether it is graded or not, and the teacher can also see whether the student has submitted it or not. So they submit the hard copy, we evaluate, and then we return the same to them. They upload it on Moodle. So this is one sample, followed by the reflective diary, where certain probing questions are already there, but it is open-ended. Students can write, they can pour their reflections as much as they want to. And the marks you can see on the right-hand side. This is a sample of the summary report sheet. Again, we have certain probing points, but it is also open-ended. Next is the supervisor's evaluation. So we follow certain rubrics. We assign, the marks upon 50, which we convert to 30 for easy integration into the 100 marks table that we have. So you can see the student has received 24.60 out of 30. Okay, this is an example of a project which could be possible only through the fundings of Uniservitate, which I took up with my students from my department, integrating mass comm and social work. It was focused towards creating bilingual instructional videos. So our students created those videos depending on the the local textbook of the government school, primary school, class 4. And they had taken one prose and one poetry, and they tried to make a video which was bilingual. They did a lot of research, actually, with the help of teachers. And although I was the primary investigator, but with me, I had the faculty from mass comm and social work as well. It was activity-based. The entire project was activity-based bilingual content creation for the primary learners, which was followed by providing teachers training to those primary teachers who were not aware of what YouTube is and how to create content on YouTube, how to upload it. We are yet to find out the impact of this this last part of the teachers training. The result that we have found is improved comprehension among the learners, then engagement, vocabulary acquisition by the primary learners, and it was a quasi-experimental study through pre-test, intervention, and post-test, and the results were positive. And we had received community feedback. Yeah, we have received community feedback, which was integrated, but the feedback was not through any structured interview. So we are trying to work on creating, standardized tools. We did a SWOT analysis where the strengths I have already mentioned, so I'll just like to highlight one of the strengths, which is the last one. You can see awareness about the community. Teachers from different other departments lack awareness about the community, so we take help of the Department of Social Work. They act as a liaisoning, the members who reach out to the community. We have a very specific local governance which we have to cross and reach out to the community to actually diagnose their needs and work according to the needs. And we have an anchoring body of Center for Development of Studies and Initiatives. We had certain weakness also, which is focused towards limited depth of documenting the community impact, inconsistent integration of community feedback, varied student commitment levels. I think I've heard from all the speakers, we all are facing similar issues. Then occasional dependency of faculty availability. Faculty are sometimes reluctant to involve into service learning practice because we are yet to achieve the target of, giving something in return in the form of academic performance appraisal indicators, or so we need to work on this. Although we have tried to put it in the academic council, but it has not been, accepted yet. There are certain threats specific to our Indian context. We have the threat of the rural area, the technical glitches in the rural areas, and the opportunities, of course, like this. When we gather together, we learn from each other through international collaborations. This is a framework that we are proposing. We will continue with the monitoring part, we'll continue with the evaluation part, but we would like to add the accountability factor here, ensuring transparency with all the stakeholders, taking the feedback with the help of standardized tools, but again, it will be context specific, triangulating through qualitative methods like interpretative phenomenological analysis, where we would try to perceive the data from the field, and we would try to interpret through the lived experiences of the stakeholders, systematize impact documentation, and sustainable resource allocation and support. And learning is always an integral part, so integrating insights into future learning, future SL designs, including the best practices from the field. So the intention would be, what we would like to take forward, what we need to conduct in the future would be improving the learning outcomes, refining the evaluation techniques, generating evidence-based research, which is very, very significant, and strengthen the community impact by enhancing equality, sustainability, global relevance, and solidarity. So with this, I would like to thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Ranjita. Thank you so much. Bueno, muchas gracias, Dide.
Thank you, Dides, Catalina, and Ranjita. And now we will finish off this panel looking at the video by Layth, Awwad, and Ruba Ayat, Service Learning in Wartime, Solidarity and Spirituality at Bethlehem University. So you can listen to it in English, and you have the subtitles in Spanish.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having us today. My name is Ruba Ayat.
And my name is Layth Awwad.
And both of us are educators at Bethlehem University in Palestine. And we are very excited to share with you our research titled Service Learning in Wartime, Solidarity and Spirituality at Bethlehem University. To give you a bit of context, Bethlehem University's Lasallian mission is to provide quality higher education to people of Palestine and to serve them as the center for advancement, sharing, and use of knowledge. And Bethlehem University's Lasallian mission aligns with service learning mission.
Okay, so it all started in fall 2023 when we witnessed a sudden shift to online teaching due to the war in Palestine, forcing us as educators to rethink learning models and face feelings of helplessness that both we and the students shared at the same time. It quickly became clear that we're both struggling in new ways that we haven't experienced before. Many students in our classes were experiencing feelings of helplessness and hopelessness, saying things like, there's nothing I can do, and I feel like I can't make a difference. So we both thought, what might unfold when we introduce a service learning approach into our English major courses during this time?
And this is why our research becomes extremely important, because we try to answer this question: do students' narratives while participating in service learning, especially during wartime, reflect empowerment, personal transformation, and a shift in agency?
So this research is a qualitative research in nature. It is guided by Vygotsky, zone of proximal development, and Freire's pedagogy. While Vygotsky's underscore scaffolding and peer collaboration, which naturally exists in service learning, mixed with Freire's pedagogy that invites problem posing and challenging oppressive structures, that is very relevant in the Palestinian context. In addition, we included the transformative learning, which is the structured reflection phases, where we have, like in service learning, pre-service, during service, and post-service reflection. In the pre-service, of course, we examine their prior knowledge and values. Of course, that's in summary. In the during service, they reflect on their roles, on their actions, what they're doing in these campaigns and these projects. And in the post-service, it's a holistic reflection on everything that they have learned and how they've changed throughout the semester. And we also conducted personal interviews with the students on campus.
To move on to student participation, in fall 2023, digital communication was taught by Layth, where 31 students participated in digital awareness campaigns. The following semester, I taught English for Advocacy, where 24 students were able to design real-life advocacy campaign addressing issues affecting their local communities.
Both of our courses included a lot of campaigns, but we will both focus on two from our courses. The first one is called Clean BU, where it was an anti-littering awareness digital campaign, aligning with SDGs 11, 12, 13, and 15. The students used Instagram and websites to digitally communicate with their target audience. And these students used storytelling techniques, where they wrote a whole blog about a cat named Awwad that all the students know on campus. And they helped the students, their local target audience, connect with this cat that they all care about, and saying, like, if you litter, you're going to hurt this cat that you all know and care about. And they also connected that by promoting being a global citizenship and that we all should care about our own environment. And of course, it didn't just reach the local audience, because it's social media, they could reach unlimited audience. The second one was called Bodies Not Labels, that was combating body shaming. The students created Share Your Story form, which I will talk about later. But this project it went viral basically online. They reached around 40,000 impressions in a week. They created an animated video that was outside of the guidelines. They just took that initiative and did that. And that video went viral and was really it was also adopted by a popular Instagram page in Japan, and it resonated with Japanese audience. And again, it wasn't just about Bethlehem University, it was about all of this global audience.
Okay, now moving on to advocacy campaigns. As you can see here, the first one is Art for Emotional Expression, where students were able to actually create advocacy campaigns on the ground. So students were able to work with Wings of Hope, which is an NGO that focuses on mental health and trauma, and with Ibda Community Center. So what students did is that they worked with children from actual refugee camp, and they invited their parents. And what they did is that they created this art workshop where children were able to express themselves and their emotions through drawings. And the second advocacy campaign is Community Fun Day, which is a very cool and interesting campaign because students were able to create and organize a 3-hour event for marginalized mothers, stay-at-home mothers. So this focused on storytelling, guided discussions, and support groups that fostered connection. And this created a safe and lively environment where stay-at-home mothers were able to express their feelings through different activities.
Okay, so our results were in two parts, learning objectives and community objectives. The first learning objectives was obviously digital content creation. Our students used Instagram, Canva for Education, where they edited and created everything there, Google Sites, and especially like these Google Sites that they are multimedia in nature. So we really focused on the concept of multimodality or multimedia, where the students needed to think not just on the message, but how the Instagram and the website and the fonts and the logos and the colors and everything, how they work together to send one message all at the same time. One student reflected that using social media in this academic context was a totally new experience for them. So service learning mixed with digital communication shows us how service learning can still be effective during physical isolation. And the second objective was these advocacy and awareness campaigns, where the students themselves, they decided from the beginning which real life issues they want to work on. And they designed and implemented all of these fully fleshed out campaigns where they applied what we taught them, the theoretical part, to practice. And these students obviously also talked about that they weren't just passive learners anymore, they were agents of change.
Okay, now moving on to our last objective, which is community objectives. The first one, students were able to respond to different urgent needs. And not only that, but they were also they were able to build resilience.
In Clean BU, we can see that the small active resistance to protect the land and protect the beauty of Palestine, and all at the same time advocating for environmental care. Another example is Bodies Not Labels, where they addressed these stress-induced eating habits that people were having at that time. And not only that, but also promote kindness and self-compassion within ourselves and the people around us.
Now, addressing community objective was very important in the advocacy campaign, which is Art for Emotional Expression, which is something that has never been done before, at least at that time. And this offered children a safe space to process wartime through drawings and art. And then Community Fun Day, this is a space that allowed mothers to disengage from daily stressors. Moving on to objective number 2, which is fostering solidarity and social cohesion.
For example, the students did get involved blogs online where they showed the public and their target audience and anyone who can access their websites or their Instagrams on how to get involved and be part of these campaigns. And one of the students did anonymous share your story Google Forms, which was in the Bodies Not Labels, where they asked people to share their stories anonymously. And that gave the chance to other people to have the courage to be able to share their story with body shaming. And that really cultivated empathy and showed that they all have a collective voice.
Now, the advocacy campaigns engage the students directly with their communities. For example, while the workshop by Art for Emotional Expression employed art, the focus on trauma remained at the center. As one student said, mental health is a crucial topic to talk about, especially for children as they are the future of our nation, showing growing feelings of solidarity and social cohesion. Now, for Community Fun Day for stay-at-home mothers, this created a safe space for mothers to feel heard. And one of the participants actually said to the students that you are the first person to ask me about my feelings. And this actually sparked an interest where the students actually said that she now wants to work and volunteer at NGOs that serve local communities.
And through this research, like we've realized that many students reach a sense of spirituality, and not necessarily in like the religious sense, but in the sense defined as it's that spirituality is a lifelong development of a sense of the authentic self, placing us in relationships with others through care and outreach. So when we talk about spirituality here, we're talking about the ongoing construction of meaning, the interconnectedness, human intelligence, and the wholeness and compassion in general. All of these were evident, not just in seeing our students engaging with their communities, but also in their reflections. And especially in Palestine, in our unique context, service learning did become the answer to this search for meaning and served as a platform for psychological support for communities, for us, for our students, and for their personal growth. So as a conclusion, service learning acted as a bridge between this heartbreak that we were all facing through agency, empowering students to respond to community needs during these difficult times. Again, students experienced personal growth, strengthened solidarity, spiritual awakening, and enhanced civic agency. These campaigns illustrated how digital tools and direct advocacy can foster resilience and social cohesion within our communities. And our legacy is this cohort of young leaders who now believe that I can help, I am needed, and I can make a difference. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you so much.